What is the future of Invest 96L and what areas could it impact? Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We're your home for Caribbean weather. Great to see you on this Wednesday. We're going to get into the latest information on Invest 96L, look at all the tropical models associated with it, break it down as it moves across the Atlantic over the next several days. But the first thing we're going to do in this video is actually get into what's happening across our region today, because it has been a very active weather day for many locations. We're going to start off out to the west, our friends in Belize. Thunderstorms abound across the area today. Look at some of the thunderstorms getting going across the coastal sections, then working its way inland. Heavy lightning count. We've had some good thunderstorms. We've had some small craft cautions for coastal areas of Belize, San Pedro down to Belize City. Again, these storms are marching inland at the hour towards Orange Walk and San Ignacio, Jettabal areas, the southern sides of Quintana Roo. Certainly the opportunity to get some thunderstorms across the Bay Islands, Utila, Roatán, Guanaja. If nothing else, it's been a cloudier, cooler day across this area, but hopefully some beneficial rain. Obviously, boaters need to be cautious of the lightning that's in the area here, and these thunderstorms are likely to continue to develop north throughout the Yucatan, inland from Cancun and Cozumel, and work their way west as we go through the remainder of this Wednesday afternoon. Another area that has been greatly impacted by significant storms for today is going to be the northern and the northwest Bahamas. You thought that there was a lot of lightning in Belize. Look at the lightning count here for the northwest Bahamas from the Andros area, New Providence, including Nassau, Eleuthera, and especially up towards the Abacos, Bimini, Grand Bahama, and Walker's Key. Friends, we've had over 3,000 lightning strikes in a 15-minute time frame in this area. I have the live radar data. Let's take a look at that. Look at the thunderstorms developing. Now look, these are impactful storms. First of all, the lightning is going to drive a lot of folks inland or back indoors. And if you are out in the boat, your boat are out there, just be very cautious of these storms. Look, you got to get into safe harbor here with the amount of lightning being produced. It's obviously going to kick up some sea conditions as well. Watch out for areas of flooding. These are fairly slow moving, heavy thunderstorms, so areas of flood are absolutely not out of the question. If you guys live on Walker's Key or Grand Bahama, including Freeport, Lucaya, the Abacos, Andros, New Providence, Eleuthera, maybe as far south as Cat Island, let me know in the comments section below how you've been impacted by these storms. Now look, this is an area that has been under some extreme heat, so these are nice cooling thunderstorms, but they are hefty thunderstorms at the hour across portions of the northern Bahamas. Elsewhere across our region for today, let's go start off to our northwest and then work our way back off towards the east. We are seeing some thunderstorms develop across portions of the Cayman Islands of Jamaica, not as concentrated as the Bahamas and Belize and portions of the Yucatan, no doubt about it. But if you live on Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, certainly the opportunity for a passing shower or thunderstorm. Again, fairly hefty lightning counts from time to time. We have a large wave and strong wind advisory continuing for Jamaica, both the nearshore and offshore waters of the north and the south coastlines. The opportunity for a couple of thunderstorms. Now, folks in Jamaica have asked me in the comments section below, Rusty, do we have a good chance for rain anytime soon? The answer, unfortunately, is not significant rain, but some passing showers not out of the question over the next couple of afternoons. Showers and thunderstorms will not be as prevalent southeast Bahamas, Turks and Caicos. The air is a little bit drier at the hour there. Thunderstorms beginning to develop over the interior sections of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, across the island of Hispaniola. Again, you can see on our terrain map here, this is falling in some of the highest terrain of the island. This could lead to localized flash flooding of low-lying areas right across the Haitian-DR border. Scattered thunderstorms developing on the south central, southwest sides of Puerto Rico at the hour. I'm also going to bring on the wind gusts here. The first thing you'll see is temperatures. By the way, the heat advisory, of course, continues. Now these are wind gusts in miles an hour. So you can see where the thunderstorms are developing. Uti Alto, Barranquitas area, back south and west towards Ponce. Some isolated but hefty thunderstorms to try and cool things off. When you have this kind of heat, you can get some significant but isolated thunderstorm activity. That's exactly what we're seeing across the islands today. Still seeing some haze across the eastern side of the Caribbean. Now look, we don't have as many haze advisories for today, and the concentration of Saharan dust is not as prominent from Anguilla back down to Trinidad and Tobago, but it's still limiting the opportunity for showers for today. There's not a lot of rain here across the Lesser Antilles, but again, a passing shower not out of question for Anguilla, St. Bart, Sabas, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica on towards Martinique. Slightly better rain chances in the Windward Islands, especially back down towards Trinidad and Tobago. Look at the moisture beginning to develop there, right over the Trinidad area. A few thunderstorms, some lightning strikes near Port of Spain. Not as much rain for Tobago. We are going to see a weak tropical disturbance not associated with 96L beginning to work its way across the Eastern Caribbean as we move into Thursday and Friday. And if you guys look at these 5-day forecasts down below, you'll start to see some improving rain chances in the Eastern Caribbean in association with that. Look, again, it's not going to be organized rain, but some brisk, breezy showers moving through, certainly not out of the question. Not a bad day for the ABC Islands, not significant winds for today, but still some fresh passing showers from time to time are opportunity, but again, they're fairly isolated in nature. Then, if you notice, 95L is gone. Remember, it was beginning to elongate into kind of a subtropical frontal system already yesterday. It's gone. So this is not going to be a named storm. The frontal boundary that's coming off of the United States East Coast is actually bringing some thunderstorms to Bermuda at the hour, but we will not have a named system out of 95L. Now the question is, will we get anything out of 96L? As we move on to the rest of the forecast and deep dive into the tropics, thanks for taking a quick second. Hit that like button for me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. We'll now bring up your marine forecast for over 25 areas, major harbors, major cruise ports, major fishing areas of interest. Let's talk about 96L and its future. Guess what? It's back down to an orange. Remember yesterday, it was a cherry, it was a red, a 70% chance of development. Well, now the Hurricane Center has dropped it back down to 60. The interesting thing is, at least at this point in time, 96L still looks very impressive. We have some good concentrated thunderstorm development, right? You can see that there's decent outflow. We have decent moisture association with this system. So in the short term, we still have a viable tropical disturbance that could become a depression or a named storm. Remember, the next name on the list is going to be Dolly. The question and the biggest thing to discuss is, as it moves farther west, kind of into the western half of this development area, it's going to be encountering a lot more shear and some drier air to the north. If I bring on the water vapor imagery here, when you see the reds, that's the drier air. Now look, it's making its own environment right now, so the moisture is out ahead of its actual movement, but that layer of shear is thicker as it gets closer to the Lesser Antilles. So the biggest question is, can it survive maybe into the weekend? It's likely to survive through at least Friday, but can it hold together even if it becomes a depression as it moves closer to the Eastern Caribbean? Let's look at our tropical models. I'm going to break all that down for you here. This is going to be our spaghetti plots. Now, wherever we still have models that continue to develop it, some of them weaken and end their plots, there is the opportunity that whatever this is going to have some impacts to the Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico early next week. Now, this could just be an elongated, disorganized tropical wave, much like 94L was, and bring some beneficial rain. It will bring some wind to go along with it, but we might not have a lot of significant bad impacts. We might actually have some good impacts as far as some decent rainfall. The other opportunity is that it stays very weak until it gets into the Western Atlantic Basin. And then you can see some of the models try and recurve it just east of Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. And it's those plots that make this system the strongest mid to late next week. So there is still a lot of question as to what is going to happen with this system. So let's break down the tropical models for you guys on 96L. We're going to start off with the European AI. You can see a very weak system here, guys, right? Very weak, that kind of falls apart a bit, again, towards the wind shear area just north and east of the Lesser Antilles, and then tries to reemerge just east of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos and bend its way back to the north and to the east, okay? So the circulation, what is 96L, survives, but it takes a time on the European AI for it to actually develop. Now, the question becomes, right, is this just holding on to a last gasp of an area of low pressure that basically gets blown apart before it even gets here, right? Can it actually survive as a low-level center or even a mid-level center and make its way into the Western Atlantic Basin where likely conditions are going to be more favorable? GFS AI, same situation, extremely weak, almost non-existent as we get towards next Tuesday and Wednesday, and then slowly you start to see just a little bit trying to develop right here as well, but not a lot of the ensemble members of the GFS AI are holding on to a pressure, a low-level center that can actually survive. So obviously the trend is our friend, right? The trends of this thing beginning to weaken. Here's a great one. The H-Wharf had a very strong storm. Certainly a named storm moving into the Leeward Islands over the weekend. It has really flipped in the last 24 hours. This is the loop through Sunday afternoon. We still have a very weak area of low pressure going through Antigua and Barbuda and St. Eustatius and Anguilla towards the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, but as a very weak system, much like 94L was farther to the south. This would be a beneficial rainmaker. Still would come with some wind, probably some higher surf and sea conditions, but not a truly significant area of closed circulation. The Google DeepMind completely has nothing into the northeast side of the Caribbean. The first signs of what is 96L now trying to develop on the Google DeepMind is near Turks and Caicos or just east of the Bahamas next Wednesday, kind of in that same area where the GFS and European AI say, hey, look, if this thing can hold together, it gets into a better development region here, and the Google DeepMind is also showing that, but very limited number of the ensemble members are picking up on that. Most of them do not have a system developing. I do want to go back to the European AI because I also have to mention, and when we put this into motion, if you look down the road in the Gulf, there is a developing system there as we get into mid to late next week. So there is an opportunity, right, to have to watch for something also in the Gulf. I just wanted to point that out. First time the European AI has shown a completely separate system outside of what could be 96L trying to develop in the South Central Gulf mid to late next week. Again, we've got plenty of time to monitor it, but I wanted to point that out if you saw that a little bit earlier on the more wide scale map. So again, the situation with 96L looks like this. I don't expect it to develop into a strong system in the next couple of days. The question more than anything is going to be, can it survive as it gets closer to the Lesser Antilles here as we move into late this week and into the weekend? If it does, potentially it could try and get a little bit stronger to the north and to the west of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico and closer to Turks and Caicos. So it's a situation I'll be monitoring for you guys very closely. That is right now the only game in town. 95L is done. At this point in time, I don't see another disturbance coming off of the West African coast that has signs of development over the next 5 to 7 days. So now let's get into the rainfall forecast. First thing I'm going to start off with, go back to the areas that I got pounded today, and there is still the opportunity for some storms to be abound in the northern and northwest Bahamas and Florida, by the way, if you're viewing from Florida, over the next several days. We are going to get into a very active weather pattern from the New Providence area north into central and southern Florida. Look at some of the rainfall totals coming up, but this could be a very stormy forecast here. But again, for the Bahamas, not a bad situation. It's been so darn hot. Now you get into the central southeast Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, rain chances will be not as widespread as areas to the north. Scattered rain will continue on a daily basis across the Caribbean side of Central America. Our Central American gyre is still quite active. It's not spinning up any significant storms in our region, but it is throwing enough moisture far enough north to provide opportunity for some scattered storms on a daily basis. Scattered rain is the best that I can do for you right now in the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. Again, not a very widespread high chance on a daily basis for Kingston, Portmore, and Spanish Town, but at least the opportunity will be there from time to time. If you're boaters, if you're fishermen, watch out for the large wave and strong wind advisory to continue. We'd still have some waters, some waves in the open waters around 2.5 meters or even more significant from time to time. Scattered thunderstorms for places like Santo Domingo, Punta Cana, the Samana Peninsula, on over towards Puerto Plata. Not a bad forecast here. Cooling showers and thunderstorms certainly would be welcomed. Obviously, that would be very welcomed over Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. There is more moisture coming. we do expect there to be nothing else, improved rain chances with whatever 96L kind of moves into this way. So I do expect for Anegada, Roatan, Tortola, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Vieques, and Culebra, and Puerto Rico to see some better rain chances starting late this weekend and into early next week. And obviously that's the same situation for places like Anguilla and Antigua and Barbuda. Now again, we could start to see some elevated sea conditions, and we could start to see some winds that could be an issue in some of the higher elevations. Remember, we did have some 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts in association with 94L. So if 96L comes in, still very disorganized, there still is this opportunity for some fresh winds Sunday and into Monday. At this point in time, a far enough north track, you get south of Dominica. And while there will be some impacts for Martinique and St. Lucia and Barbados, SVG and Grenada and TNT and Nueva Esparta, not as significant here. Still some rounds of showers and some thunderstorms. To show you the broad perspective of our rainfall model, you can see a weak system, somewhat disorganized, but still an area of healthy tropical rain does move into the Leeward Islands and areas to the north and to the east. So again, regardless of development, this is a big slug of tropical moisture coming into our northeast areas. So rainfall totals over the next 5 days on the European model look like this. 3 areas to really point out, and it's the same areas that I just mentioned here as we zoomed in close. It's the Bahamas and Florida and the United States East Coast. It's portions of Central America, and then some higher rain totals, just depending on exactly where this center of circulation goes. But several inches of rain is possible in the Eastern Caribbean, certainly a likelihood out west, and the same situation for the northern northwest Bahamas and Florida as well. You're going to see a lot of 1.5 to 2 inch rainfall totals, but if you look at the darker red, we get into some 3 and 4 inches of rain. And it's not out of the question for places like Grand Bahama and New Providence to pick up in some spots of those islands between 3 and 4 inches of rain between now and Sunday evening. Not out of the question whatsoever. We're going to have a boundary sitting over the area, moisture-laden air. It's going to be like a wet sponge out there for these areas, including central and northern Florida. Watch out for some gale conditions in portions of the Caribbean. Again, that's why we have the large wave and strong wind advisories. Still going to see some significant waves moving into the northeast Caribbean, skirting the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. Could start to see some long period swells for the eastern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos as well, just depending on how strong that system ends up getting. But obviously, outside of this thing being very organized, it's still going to have some marine impacts, and I'll be monitoring that situation for you guys very closely. So again, at the hour, we have some healthy thunderstorms in our northern and western areas. We're watching 96L, still an impressive wave. But overall, down the road, its story could be a system that develops in the next 48 hours, but can't quite hold together as it gets closer to the Eastern Caribbean over the weekend. I'll be watching it very closely for you guys. I am out of time for today right now. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Again, you got a question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow with your latest forecast.